What up YouTube, Art again here with another Warzone 2 audio video. In the last video, I explained how loudness equalization got nerfed, and I gave you quick initial settings with the Season 2 update, but in this video, I've spent the last week or so deep diving Warzone 2 audio, and I've come up with a very cool system. The short of it is, we are going to install a series of applications that will emulate 7.1 surround sound on your PC at the Windows level in a much more controllable and efficient way than just installing Dolby Atmos. In addition, all of these softwares are free. One of them is donationware, and I will guide you through the setup. This setup is really complicated. Lucifer, my audio friend, rated it a 9 out of 10. So it's gonna be a very boring video, but I'm gonna try to explain it as clearly as possible, so stick with me. A couple notes: if you have any kind of extra hardware like an Astro's mix amp, make sure all of that is set to flat. I will also not be answering any kind of questions about what about this for Astros? What about that for SteelSeries? If I could figure out a way to produce my results with those things, I would tell you guys. So please try to follow these steps as closely as possible. Stick around to the end of the video because I will be offering one-on-one services to enable this if it's too confusing for y'all. Before we get started, there are 5 things you need to download. All of the links are in the description below. Go ahead and install all of those. Some of them are going to prompt you to restart. Don't restart until all of them are installed. Quick overview of the 5 apps that we'll be using. The first one is HiFi Virtual Audio Cable. This is donationware, so if you want to donate to the creator, you can. We're going to use this device to create a fake 7.1 output on your computer. The next app is ASIO for All. This is a sound driver that's going to allow us to utilize that virtual cable that we created. The third app is HeSuVi. This is an open source virtualized surround sound app with a lot of control. More details on that later. The fourth app is EqualizerAPO. Some of you might already be familiar with this. This is an open source app that allows us to apply equalization and plugins to any output or input device on the computer. This is important because HeSuVi, the surround sound app, utilizes this to run. Final thing we're going to install are replugs. These are freely available VST plugins for audio from Reaper. You should start with the HiFi cable install. If you don't have it installed, yours will look different than mine. It'll just be an install button in the bottom. Go ahead and install that. Should be pretty simple. Then you can run the ASIO for All installation. That is just a very simple installer that you can click next through. Next, you should install EqualizerAPO. Now, I already have it installed, so I'll show you an important step in the installation process. It, by default, runs the configurator, which is how EqualizerAPO chooses which devices to install to. Here, you want to select the default device that you usually listen to the game over, whether that's your speakers port, your game DAC, your shitfulla, or even your Go XLR. For me, it'll be the digital audio output because that goes to my Go XLR on the stream PC. You'll also want to be sure that it is checked on the new HiFi audio cable that we have installed. After installing EqualizerAPO, the next app to install will be HeSuVi. That installer, again, is really simple. It'll ask if you want to unpack it into the EqualizerAPO folder. You just hit yes, it'll go through its steps, and you'll be done. The final thing you'll want to install is Replugs. Replugs is a free suite of plugins specifically for audio, and we'll be using the compressor out of this pack. Again, this is a very straightforward installer. Just go ahead, click agree next until you're done. Once you've installed all 5 of these apps, go ahead and restart your computer and we'll jump right into the next steps. So now that we have all of that installed, the first step and the first app that we want to open is ASIO Bridge. You can hit your Windows key and search for it. Mine is already running. It will open a window that looks like this. Now, yours will look more like this. You will not have a device selected, and ASIO will show as off. Before we really get into the weeds of this application, just a quick explanation. This uses the ASIO for All tool to patch your default audio device, whether that's your optical or your game device, what have you, through this virtual audio cable that we're going to configure for 7.1 surround sound. Just trust me on this. I know it's confusing. Follow my steps to a T and it will work. The first thing that we want to do in this window, in the blue and black LCD screen area, under ASIO device, you're going to want to select ASIO for All. You'll see that it says stopped. So up at the top, you're going to want to click the off button, which will then turn it on. Once it's on, you can open the ASIO panel. This new box will pop up. Yours will look like this by default. You won't have all those options. The first thing you need to do is click the gear icon. This will give you advanced control. Now, everyone's is going to look a little different here, so I'm going to show on the screen another way this might look if you have a different kind of device installed. What you want to do here is you want to find the device you use to listen to the game. For me, that's my motherboard output, so it's going to be the Realtek audio device. If I click the plus icon next to it, you can see that I see each of the devices on the Realtek audio chip on my motherboard. Some of these might be selected by default, but you want to just make sure that the power icon is on the output that you use to listen to the game. So for me, that's my SPDIF out, or the digital optical out. So I'll click the power icon here, and I'll make sure the power icon is on here. On the right side, you'll want to make sure it looks like this. Some people will be locked at 32 samples and 2 milliseconds kernel offset. Leave that alone. If you have the words buffer offset, make sure all the samples are set to 0. The final thing you need to do in this window is drag this slider here from 512 to 192. Now, this is the buffer size. If you go any lower than this, you might get some crackling. Once this is set up and you have the power and play buttons selected on your only device that you listen to the game on, you can close this. We'll keep this window open. We'll go to File, and we'll check System Tray. What this allows us to do is every time you run your computer, this will start, and this will be your new default output. So you can see here at the bottom, my default output is the HiFi audio cable. While we have this up, we'll go ahead and configure this virtual output for surround sound. If you right-click on Windows 10, the speakers icon, or on Windows 11, if you search for MMSYS.cpl, you'll find this window, and this is just your basic sound control panel. Under playback, you'll want to scroll down until you find the HiFi cable input. You'll select it and then click configure at the bottom. I already have mine set up, but you'll want to click surround sound 7.1, click next, click next, click next, and click finish. Once that's done, go to the recording tab. Right click the HiFi cable output, which is the other side of this virtual audio cable, and select Properties. Under Advanced, make sure that this is set to the same sample rate as the other side. So you can see here, the output is 48,000 Hertz. If I go back to playback and I right-click and select Properties on the input, you can see here it is also 48,000 Hertz and 24-bit. Those two things need to match, or in this window, the SR will flash because it's a mismatched sample rate. Make sure one more time that System Tray parentheses run at startup is checked. This way you never have to run this app manually. Before we close it and we move any further, go ahead and open something in a browser and make sure you can hear sound coming out over that output. If you can't, go back through those steps and make sure everything's configured correctly. Make sure that your default device in Windows is set to the HiFi cable input. Once you're done with that, you can close the app because ASIO Bridge set up like this will always run in the tray, as you can see here. The next app we'll run is HeSuVi. As I said, HeSuVi is an open source surround sound virtualization tool. This is typically used by cinema or audio nerds. We're going to use it to force the game into Dolby Atmos, and a special kind of Dolby Atmos that doesn't have reverb. This is also free, as opposed to the $15 Atmos in the Microsoft Store. There's a lot you can do in here. There may be some changes that I release in a later video based upon more testing or patches that come to the game, but this is what I found best. So we'll go through it one by one. On the top left is a list of common HRIRs, and these are recorded versions of different surround sound flavors. There's a lot you can choose from here, but in my testing, and this goes to prove that Atmos is probably integrated with the game, Dolby Atmos Minus, which is the second option in the list, is by far the best sounding. Go ahead and select that. On the right side, you'll find Matrix Upmix. You'll just want to make this look like mine. You'll want to check both stereo and 5.1 under Upmix content, and then you'll want to select automatic under content format. The next set of settings is the speaker placement. These are what I found best in my testing to give you more directionality. Feel free to play with this though. This is the real strength of HeSuVi versus just Dolby Atmos. You'll be able to move those front channels further apart, the back channels further apart, and those side speakers front and back. These are the values that I've put in that makes it feel really spacious, but feel free to test. The last section is volume adjustment, and this is where it gets really interesting. In my testing, not all of these channels work, but the front, side, and rear channels do, as well as the master. So what I've done here is I've lowered the master by 20%. I've set it to 80. The center I've left alone, the front I've left alone, but I've brought up the side and rear to 125 so that things that aren't right in front of you are a little bit louder than everything else. Again, you can play with this. I played for a long time with the front channel way lower, and it makes gunshots super quiet. You do run the risk of losing audio cues in front of you, like somebody climbing up a ladder that might not be right in your eyesight, but below you. So don't go too far with these, but feel free to test. It's really cool stuff. The next application that we'll move on to is EqualizerAPO. And most of you are probably already familiar with this application. You'll see at the top, it has installed and include HeSuVi/HeSuVi.txt. This is so that EqualizerAPO can reference the changes that are in the HeSuVi app. This should be on by default. Before we get into this any further, there's one thing you should do to make sure that EqualizerAPO is working. Go to the plus icon, go to basic filters, and add a preamp. All this is a fancy word for a volume controller. Go ahead and play back sound on your desktop and increase the gain. If this is not increasing the volume of what you're listening to on your PC, EqualizerAPO did not install properly on one of the devices. In order to remedy that, you can go to the Windows search bar and search for Configurator. Go ahead and open it, and you'll see the same pop-up box that you had when you were installing EqualizerAPO at the beginning. Go ahead and unselect any devices here. Click your stock output, your default output, like again, for me, that's the digital audio output, and click Troubleshooting. With it selected, you'll see on the right-hand side a drop-down. If it didn't work with the default install, try selecting Install as SFX/MFX and go ahead and run the configurator utility again by pressing OK. Continue through the steps, do the preamplifier test again to see if it increases the volume. If it still doesn't work, you can try the last version here, LFX/GFX. Some hardware is picky. I had a really hard time working with beacon stuff, so it may not work for you. Once you confirm that preamplification is working and is making the sound coming out of your gaming PC louder, you can go ahead and click the minus icon and delete that. The next thing we'll add in the chain here is a VST plugin. You do this by clicking the plus icon, going to plugins, and selecting VST. I already have it loaded here, but you'll want to browse, most likely program files, VST plugs, replugs, and you'll want to select ReaComp standalone. This is Reaper's compressor. Once you select it, you can click Open Panel. Now, this is like Loudness Equalizer, but with a lot more control. A compressor makes quiet sounds louder and loud sounds quieter. This is really gonna help gunshots from being way too loud, but I wanted to configure it in a way that wasn't quite as heavy-handed as Loudness Equalizer. You'll wanna set the threshold to -5. Pre-comp should be 0, attack should be 3.3 seconds, release should be 69 milliseconds. Everything else should be default. The only other thing that we're going to change is the ratio to 2, and then the wet mix, which is the compressed mix, you'll want to add +7 gain to that. Go ahead and check the limit output box as well as apply automatically. Hit apply, hit OK, and you're done. Yes, between cuts, I did delete a plugin. I was testing it, didn't work so well. The final thing that you'll want to add by clicking plus is a high pass filter. This will be located under the parametric filters. Go ahead and select it, add it. You'll want to set the frequency to 60 Hertz and you'll want to leave it fixed Q. All this is doing is cutting out some of the excessive explosions and booms that are all over Al Mazrah and Ashika Island. So that's it for that part. If you at any point want to turn this off because it can make other streams that you watch or videos sound weird, just go ahead and click the power icon on all of these plugins. Black is off, white is on. Now is the fun part. We can really test to see if it's working. Go ahead and open HeSuVi again and make sure all of the power icons inside of Equalizer are set to white or on. In HeSuVi, in the middle of the speaker positions, you can click 7.1 test. What this will do is play a sound file from HeSuVi that a woman's voice will read the location of each speaker all the way around you, and it should be quite apparent where she's saying it from. If there's any problems or if the back channels are flipped, make sure you go back through my HeSuVi section of this video and make sure your interface matches exactly that, what's on the screen now. The final really fun thing to do to test it is you can go to Actions and you can go to Download 7.1 Gameplay Demo. What this will do is it'll open a browser window. You can play back that file inside of the browser window, and it's some type of gameplay sample. For some reason, it's not playing back on my computer right now, but it's an 11-minute gameplay. You can turn on and off the HeSuVi.txt include here at the top, and you should be very clearly able to tell that there is spatial sound emulation going on. Now, why do this over just Dolby Atmos? Well, I'm forcing the computer at the driver level to use a 7.1 connector, even if it's fake. Just this step alone really changed how COD audio was rendered. I have no proof of it, but I think there's some weird stuff going on inside COD's audio engine. In addition to that, unlike Dolby Atmos' stock app, HeSuVi gives you so much more control. You can move speaker positions, you can decrease the front channel, increase the side and rear channels, which really helps you with audio cues that aren't right in front of your face. If at any point you don't want to use this anymore, all you have to do is quit the ASIO Bridge app down here at the bottom and turn it off from running at startup, and then you can set your device back to your stock output. For me, it's the digital audio output. While we launch into Call of Duty and talk about some of the in-game settings, if you're a dual PC streamer and you use an optical or an aux to go to your GoXLR on the stream PC, the sound will still go there. All the HiFi audio cable app is doing is grabbing the sound, routing it through itself so that we can apply the effects to it, and then putting it back out that hardware input. Now, in terms of in-game settings, I configured this system to really be able to be used with the mixes so you can salt it to taste. If you like the loudness EQ sound, which is really compressed, I recommend running PC at 50 volume. PC is the loudest audio mix, so it needs the most help to be brought down so it doesn't clip. I found headphones, soundbar, and home theater to be all varying degrees of compression, with home theater being the least compressed. So I highly recommend y'all experiment with these and find which one you like the best. I've found some sweats that really like the home theater setting. I'm pretty hard of hearing, so I like running the PC setting. If you do run the home theater setting, your master volume should be set to about 74 or 76 because this is one of the more quiet presets in-game. In addition, you'll want to make sure that your default output device is set to the HiFi cable that we just made. If it's not, you won't hear anything. I really found this setting to change game sound for Warzone and Modern Warfare 2 the most. While it doesn't do what loudness EQ used to do, I don't think we'll ever get there because of how they patched it. It does kind of decrowd the mix. And what I mean by decrowd the mix, you just have two sides of your headphones, and all of these sounds, the streaks, the clusters, the loot, picking up a cool gun, just get in your ears so much. Something about the way HeSuVi remaps the channels gets some more space back into the mix and makes it less strenuous to listen to the game. Again, if you like the loudness EQ sound, use PC. That's going to be the most compressed. I use it because I'm very hard of hearing. I realize that this is a very hard guide, but I really think this is the best sound you can get out of Warzone 2 right now. If y'all need extra help, I do offer consults for streamers, and I'm going to start offering an audio consult where I help y'all through this setup. The links for those will be in my Discord and down below in the description. I'll also say that nothing, I repeat, nothing will come as close to loudness equalizer as before the Season 2 update. The audio system was super broken, and there's really no way to get back there without absolutely torching the sound. This is the best we can do for polishing the turd. I really didn't want to paywall this. I wanted to offer this to everybody for free, but I realize it's difficult, so if you need my help, hit me up there. If you like how your game sounds now, go ahead and click the like button, click subscribe, click the bell so you know when I upload another one. I think the next video in the pipeline is a settings video that I'll work with my buddy Foves on so you guys can get the most frames out of your game. Until then, let me know in the comments below what other things you want my help fixing in whatever games you play. Join the Discord, it's very active. I stream a lot over on Twitch, twitch.tv/art_is_war. And until the next video, y'all, I'll see you later. Peace.